This morning I'm going to be sharing information about a very interesting subject on tension and relaxation. The first part of the talk, actually more than half the talk, will be on tension. And then I'll wrap up with relaxation. Here's a question for you to think about for the talk. Where is your point of tension? Where is your point of tension? In the Agni book series Brotherhood, we were told that the path of tension is the path of striving. The path of tension is the path of striving. Now this right away tells you the typical understanding of the word tension is going to be a little bit different. It's from the point of view of the teaching, from the point of view of Agni Yoga. So let's start with this and try to remember the point that the book Brotherhood is making, which is the path of tension, is the path of striving. In other words, that is to say, it's the path of life. So the path of tension is the path of life. Now, this also tells us that striving creates tension. Striving creates tension. So, where is your point of tension? Striving and tension work together. On the spiritual path, striving actually takes us toward greater heights. With striving, each advancement occurs as the result of the point of tension. Striving creates tension. As we engage in the process of striving, and it takes us to higher levels of consciousness, higher levels of advancement, the result is going to be the point of tension. We must always try to go forward through dedication and service and expansion of consciousness. Dedication, service, and expansion of consciousness. So this means that as an Agni yogi, we must make conscious efforts to grow in every way possible, not just over in this little way, but every way possible. Now this is interesting. The teaching says that we must not be happy where we are. That is so outrageously different in idea and thought than this masses or stream of humanity is in their thinking. Humanity is striving to reach a goal or to reach a stage of consciousness where happiness will be continuous for the rest of their life. In Agni Yoga, we are told that joy is a special wisdom. There is a book written by Torkim Saradarian called Happiness, Joy, and Bliss. So if we just take these short phrases, joy is a special wisdom. There's been a book written for us on happiness, joy, and bliss, and then take the statement that we must not be happy where we are. This is what advancing means. This is what progress means. It doesn't mean to stay inert or this exact place where you are right now because this makes you happy. It's not that at all. So how do we not put ourselves in an inert place? It is through striving. The path of an Agni yogi is the path of improvement. The Agni yogi works every day on all the expressions of their life to reach perfection. This does not mean that we are perfectionists. That's very important because an individual, this is why, at least this is my observation. Let me give an example. Back when I was playing the violin and practicing every day, and I would reach a level where I thought was absolutely a perfect performance. And then the next day, I had oftentimes 2 or 3 violin lessons in one day. So I walk into the room with this taskmaster of a violin professor, and I would be so ready. You know, I practiced for hours and hours and hours to perfect this one particular piece of music. I take out the violin, get my violin positioned in the bow just so, and I would start, and he'd be on the piano and he'd be playing as an accompanist. 5 measures into playing this piece of music that I've been practicing for hours and hours and hours, he says, "No!" And I had walked in there thinking, this is perfect. I had perfected this piece of music. What he was trying to do is saying, no, don't stop. Don't think that you have achieved the ultimate level of performance. You can do better and better and better. So that the intensity of his expectation of me created a point of tension. And I would go back to the sorority house at that time where I was staying, and I would do what I had to do with my other courses to, you know, get a good grade and study. But then I would run down to the rehearsal halls and I would practice and practice and practice again. So this is the process of perfection, and this is the path of an Agni yogi. We work every day on all the expressions of our life to reach perfection. We learn how to do this with joy. See, with joy. If we make a mistake, we simply try again and again and learn from our errors. We do not hang our head in failure and give up. Soon, the Agni yogi learns that perfection is an ever-expanding reality. That is perfection. For an Agni yogi, it is an ever-expanding reality. Once we reach a certain level and a certain point of tension, we do not stop there. For if we do, what happens is we move into degeneration. We must constantly struggle and strive to improve ourselves. This is the life of an Agni yogi. When playing the violin or a stringed instrument, the musician must place their finger at a precise point on the string to sound the right musical note. Doing this will create a right vibration. If the point of tension on the string is incorrect, the effect is going to be an irritating sound. Just like when you take or make a wrong decision or take or make go in the wrong direction. Okay. Virtues create a point of tension. Virtues open our hearts and link us to the higher worlds. With virtues, we become servers for the common good of all humanity. Isn't that interesting? With virtues, the very chemistry of our subtle body changes. And we bloom in ways we never thought possible. Our centers, our glands, respond directly to the virtues that we practice daily. Opposing forces create a point of tension on the mental plane, which in turn can find the point of tension expressed as a result through heroic action, through striving, through sacrificial service. Virtues expressed from the higher levels of consciousness will evoke intense creativity and the impulse to fight against the violations of virtue. So a point of tension can occur between opposing forces. Each violation of higher virtues, such as virtues found in your causal body, will challenge disciples and initiates in such a way that they're going to mobilize all of their energies to fight against such violations. The violation created a point of tension. This point of tension sounds forth as a note or a call to mobilize disciples and initiates to fight. See, this is why we don't give in. There is another term in relationship to tension, and it is called creative tension. Helena Rourke, in writing to one of her students while she was in India, said, "Sometimes I feel so much like being with you physically so that I might share the joy of your creative tension." Creative tension is the accumulation of energy to perform a labor or to achieve a higher frequency. That's creative tension. Creative tension is then known as fire. It can be the result of fire by friction or solar fire. If the creative fire is the result of fire by friction, this is what will happen. It will be an organizing or an aligning fire that's going to produce a unifying effect. For example, creating a committee of 7 people to translate and publish a book can find the committee members needing to refine their personalities in such a way that the committee can work together in harmony and produce a lovely book. See how creative tension, which is the result of the fire by friction, if the 7 people on the committee recognize the dissonances that are going on, and instead, it's like tactica adversa. They take that dissonance and turn it into harmony, and then produce a most beautiful piece of work. The fire goes to work to create an integration among the members of the committee. So the outcome is the result of aligning with the committee's purpose. See how that works? Does anybody see? Okay. Okay. Solar fire. Now, solar fire is a higher point of creative tension. It is a fire that will gear your consciousness. Gear your consciousness as a disciple or as an Agni yogi to engage in higher work. Now, as an Agni yogi, can your nervous system, especially the central part of your nervous system, which is your brain and your spinal cord, along with your nerves, along with the sense organs, handle the fire? The sense organs would be like your ears and your eyes. Can your nervous system handle this solar fire? The Agni Yoga teachings instruct that, and here's a quote. It's from Letters of Helena Rourke, Volume 1, January 15th, 1930. She writes, in cosmic creation, the energies are combined in greatest tension. The combinations of united energies grow with the force of tension. The synthesis of tension is confirmed by the power of fires, higher fires. With the growth of tension, new and different energies are attracted. When the energies joined to the combination of the magnet and attract similar currents, then it is possible to establish harmonization of energies. But when the energies move to a different direction, then a wasting of the energy of the magnet takes place. And of course, this is similar with human actions. Now I'm going to tell you again where you can find this so that you can go into that book. Think about it, study it, and bring it into your awareness. Again, it's Letters of Helena Rourke, Volume 1, and she wrote that letter January 15th, 1930. So self-exertion and striving is the result of increasing spiritual tension. But vanity and ego or self-centeredness is an act of self-defeat. See, that's degeneration. Tension is a gearing process. This is very interesting to think about. It's a gearing process, and I'm going to explain that in a minute or two. So tension is a gearing process. So think about this. Gear, you know, when I was in high school and I got my first car, I was so excited about it. It was my brother's. Then he went off to college and Dad said, okay, honey, it's yours. Well, this car was a Chevy. I'll never forget it because it was my very first car. And it had what was called a vacuum shift. And a vacuum shift had 5 different gears. So as a good Gemini, I loved that challenge to figure out 5 gears, which gear, you know, am I supposed to be in? Well, tension also has 5 gears. So tension is a gearing process, but a breakdown of our nervous system, the explosion of the solar plexus or the sacral center or the throat center is going to lower the gear into our personality life. Spiritual tension is a fire that begins to accumulate in our aura which leads us to higher and higher achievements. But see, if our nervous system cannot handle this, it's going to affect our brain, which affects our spinal column, spinal cord, which affects our nerves and sense organs. And then, what's the word? Plummets us back down into those lower bodies. And then we have mental health problems. We can't hold the fire. So caution is always advised. For if the person or the group cannot hold the fire, to hold the tension, destruction will follow. It is for this reason that the teaching tells us that tension is a gearing process. You begin to slowly and gradually increase your spiritual tension, to increase your spiritual fire. See, step by step. So it is like moving from the first gear to the second to the third and so forth until your nature is so integrated and aligned with the higher fires that you can respond to what? Now you're able to respond to the call of hierarchy and engage in service to the hierarchy. Your human instrument, like the violin, will either create beautiful music or disharmonies. If disharmonies are sounded from within your physical, emotional, or lower mental bodies, irritation will be the result, which leads to a breakdown of your health. All success takes time and needs perseverance and focus. In other words, spiritual tension. Are you beginning now to see what tension is, what spiritual tension is, what creative tension is, what fire is, and how fire affects your nervous system? It's so scientific. You know, you can't get away from it. You can't fool the fire. It is what it is. When you move from one gear to the next and the next, you will slowly and correctly release the divine potential within your soul. Master Moria says that we must always be in tension. Unless we are focused and in tension, he says, we cannot do anything. But he's referring to spiritual tension. So, for example, in meditation, your body, emotions, and lower mind must be completely relaxed during meditation. At the same time, you are awake. You are in tension and also in a state of relaxation. Just think about this. Okay, how are we going to think about this? What comes to mind is here we have the beginning of the day in your home. And oh my gosh, you know, it's 7 o'clock. I have to be in the car at 7:30. And my kids are still in there eating breakfast, throwing their Cheerios at one another, and the dogs haven't been walked yet. And I have only 30, and here I am, meditation, but listen to them out there, and I can imagine what the kitchen looks like, So, there's my life many years ago. Yeah, there's no tension and there's no relaxation. So I should not have even tried, because it was creating irritation. But in meditation, our body, our physical, emotional, and lower mental bodies must be completely relaxed. But we can't fall asleep. I can't tell you how often when I'm standing in front of a group of people and everybody is in a state of meditation, some are, and they're falling off the chair. See, so tension, relaxation, be awake. When you are engaged in doing the work, the labor of the teaching, it puts you in tension. But you are relaxed because of your joy and your desire to serve. It is the joy of service and striving. When I used to perform the violin, this is a violin lecture. I don't know why it's ending, I guess just a great reference point. Anyway, when I used to perform the violin in the concert, the many hours and days of practice before the weeks leading up to the concert, tension was created. See, the striving created the tension. I needed the tension to overcome the difficulties of the music, but it helped me to go to a higher level and to have the ability to engage in increasingly difficult music. So do you see, okay, the gears of creative tension? This coming January, we are offering a course to students called Obsession and Possession, where each member of the course will take a chapter of a book from the teaching and share it with the class. The preparation process creates the tension. Teaching the class will create tension in their bodies. But once they experience that sense of fulfillment, the joy of labor, they will then be ready to take the next step, the new gear of tension. The result can be that in the future, they will receive the impulses, the ideas from the master, and teach it in various ways, without the fire and tension damaging their human constitution. See how that works? Unless we are focused and in tension, we cannot do anything. For example, you decide you want to share the teaching, and you begin to lecture. Week after week, you give a lecture. You choose a subject from the teaching, and week after week you talk about that new subject. This process creates tension. If it is done correctly, you will eventually move from the lower gears of tension to the higher gears, from the lower octave to the higher octaves, making contact with higher spheres of consciousness. Now, where does relaxation enter the picture here? Relaxation is good because the final destination, you're not going to believe this, it's right directly from the teaching. The final destination of relaxation is to be ourselves. That's the final destination of relaxation, to be ourselves, not our bodies. In relaxation, we meet our capital S self. In the Bible, it says that in a great fire, God did not appear. In a great wind, God did not appear. There was a great earthquake. God did not appear. But when there was absolute silence, God appeared. God is tension in absolute silence. Only relaxation creates tension, and only with tension can we maintain relaxation forever. We need tension to progress, to strive, and to overcome our difficulties, but each time we must go to a higher level. If you have difficulty on a lower level of your personality and try to use the same level of force to erase the difficulty, do you know what happens? Is you increase the difficulty. You increase the difficulty if you use the same level of force. So we must go to a higher level to knock down, the difficulty. You need spiritual tension to relax your physical, emotional, and mental nature. But if you are in physical tension and you attack this tension from the physical level, you cannot create relaxation. Spiritual tension is when you say, I am going to do something, and you do it. Living a goal-fitting life is tension. Let us say that your goal is to be a Tara or a master. If you continue striving to reach your goal, to be a Tara or to be a master, day after day, in spite of all difficulties, in spite of opposing forces, you are really in spiritual tension and you never give up. See, this is spiritual tension. But if you change your goal every minute, you do not have spiritual tension. We would say that you do not have willpower, because willpower is very necessary to keep everything quiet within you. It's heavy, isn't it? I do suggest that you listen to this recording later on this afternoon. It'll be put up on YouTube, or you can buy the CD, or just reread your notes and begin to practice. Relaxation is when we make our body rhythmic with our own essence. When we make our body rhythmic with our own essence. This is relaxation. Relaxation is when your spirit takes over the physical, emotional, and mental bodies. This is striving. Striving does not mean that you are going from the physical to the higher spheres. Striving is the opposite. Striving is to make your real self dominate your not self. Striving is not climbing to the mountaintop. It is not effort. It is not tension. It is slowly, slowly gaining power over your mind, over your emotions, over your body, starting from above. Relaxation in the physical body is a phenomenon in which your human soul lets the energies flow through your physical body without interruption. When you are asleep, think about this, when you are asleep, the emotional and mental interferences are very minimal. Interruption comes from the mental and emotional actions that prohibit the flow. In emotional relaxation, your emotions are filled with love. The emotional body is filled with love. In mental relaxation, your mind is in let's say, a state of high concentration, meditation, concentration, high state of concentration, meditation, or contemplation, or all ideation of the mind is stopped by the body itself in highest tension. In other words, tension and relaxation must go together. Okay, let me end with this. These are two quotes. The first one is from Helena Rourke's Letters, Volume 2, April 23rd, 1938. The tension in the world is constantly increasing. Events are hastened, but the forces of light will steer all into proper channels. Learn to find joy in labor and in endless knowledge. Endure the most difficult days. The next quote is from Letters, Volume 2, but this time November 23rd. The day she wrote this letter was November 23rd, 1937. And she said, "Only in highest tension can our energies be refined and transmitted into higher strivings. Indeed, strivings mold the character or karma of man." I have been working on this talk all week. It is so subtle and yet profound at the same time. And it's a really good reminder to ask yourself, what is my point of tension? What is my point of tension? And that's all I'm going to say. Okay.